All right, let me blast off real quick. Okay. All right. Light news. AOC and Bernie momentum. Does it mean for the Dems? Hog watch. Cop watch. TikTok. Sigma. Grind set. Influencer watch. It's weird seeing this man go live on my YouTube watcher. Welcome to the live stream. It's a very different experience. Okay. AC shadows continued later. Yeah. Israeli civil war. Fingers crossed. Who's the guest today? No, there is no guest today. There was a guest on the podcast. Trump supports our dictator Erdogan, secular Turkish opponents. People resist the dictator, be a voice for us. Do we have a blast off meme? I'm gonna talk about the Turkish stuff too. Don't worry. Do we have a blast off meme? Chatters. Whatever happened to the treadmill? Bringing it back? No. It's back there somewhere. I don't use it. One of the merch memes? Sure. Brother, it's 1:30. Blast off meme expired. Why? What is your deadlift max? I don't know. My lifetime PR is high. Where do you get your frames? All over. These are Gentle Giant though. Or Gentle Giant? Gentle Monster? All right. Thank you for the bleach meme. That's a good one. All right. I'm going to use that one. When are you going to play Safe Lane Slark again? I don't know what that is. All right. We're blasting off. We're blasted. You're so weeb, Lamau. Tacos El Gordo, smash or pass? Smash. It was incredible. I loved it. I'm going to talk about Elon banning accounts. AC Shadows reached 2 million sales within 3 days. Please check on her boy Grums. Make sure he's not posting a 9-year-old character he wants to wife up again. Yeah. It's all of our efforts in advertising that have caused Assassin's Creed to skyrocket in popularity. Doing another hashtag ad today, baby. Let's go. Why y'all spamming the link? What do you mean? Brace posting has been giving me life. Mom of data Republican. Okay, here's the deal. As a mother of someone who benefited from special ed, I absolutely trust the states to provide for kids that need extra help. I absolutely trust the states to provide the kids that need extra help. The ADA requires that they have equal access. Some states will obviously do a better job than others, but that is already the case. Some states do a better job in education, period. We absolutely do not need to throw money at the federal Department of Education. Brace responds, my shit is rancid and you are so ancient that ADA laws may straight up not even be enough, lol. If we slip up and hit raw due to passion or mojito, our kid will need this. Reconsider. Brace has been going on a tear as the reply guy who is like insanely horny. He's been presenting himself as an insanely horny reply guy and also actively posting in like the craziest right-wing accounts, right-wing communities. And he's been on a generational run on Twitter. This is so me. Scientists explaining importance of good sleep. Me at 3 a.m. watching him explain. The reason you're up at 3 a.m. is because of anxiety. I was recently listening to a Doechii song about this. She fucking nails it. I've been having 3 beers in the hour before bed to chill out and help me get to sleep quicker. Try this. Being a bud tender that actually cares about the industry and the science of cannabis, hearing what's your highest percent sativa that won't make me anxious 30 times a day, making me pull my hair out. This is why I moved on from all that shit and sell snow. Someone acts like this, I put a little Fetty in and lights out. No prisoners, lol. Oh, you going to jail. I'll do it in jail too, lol. Which was the one where he was talking about Planet of Memes. If you enjoy my content and would like to support this account, consider becoming a subscriber for just $3 a month. I appreciate all who's become subscribers so far. I'll give you 5,000 to start drinking again. Maybe that will help this bullshit streak you've been on. Content fucking sucks now. You fucking suck now. I used to think that I would do anything for you. Now I think I would do anything to you. The one with the lady, the one with the Republican in front of the Tesla is perhaps the most insane one I've seen anyone ever type out. I think this is this the one? What is this? I sometimes desultorily masturbate to video interviews you do, but oftentimes find it difficult due to your webcam quality, e.g. attached picture. You are my favorite writer thinker, but some stuff needs a major upgrade. Camera off. I can do it to just audio or AI image. A real freak. Oh, this one I responded to. Yeah. Pretty snazzy car at Elon Musk, says Virginia Fox, Congresswoman Virginia Fox, representing North Carolina's 5th district. He responds with sleek, curvy, sexy. I'd do anything to get in and never get out, even if it died on me in a year or two. The Tesla ain't half bad either. He's lost his mind. He is just There's that clown account that he responds to apparently was like quitting drinking, and he's just been telling him to start drinking again over and over again. He's going back to the old ways, you know, at a time when you could have some fun online anonymously, even though he's not anonymous. Okay. Piss Pig is back. Yeah. Comedy is legal again, except until they decide it's not legal, because most likely because of what Brace has been doing, you know? Are you glorifying guns? Because I got them, baby. Fuck you mean? All right. Did you see what they caught David Shore saying? Oh, here's the one that I was talking about. 7 days sober. Drinking in your 40s isn't worth it. Time to do things differently. Unfortunately, it is too late to stop. Irreparable damage to liver. Kidneys likely shot. Relationships ruined. The rest of your life will be miserable. You will never have fun again. The drink is gone, but you will remain a burden to those in your life. Miss me yet? He's going insane mode. What is this? Secretary of Education Linda McMahon. I love her. I love this, but some friendly advice. Vince McMahon shits on women. I have to wonder if he took a dump on her. There was a lot of that stuff in the lawsuits. She isn't him, but she was with him a long time. I wonder if it happened. It's distracting. What is this? W. Mike and Jack. I sometimes wish you were W. Brace. You will grow tired of seeing your reflection in your bald husband's degraded pate. He will succumb soon to whatever sickness that made him look like that, and I will lift up your black veil of grief and blow your mind. Pate? Is it pate or pate? I don't know what that is. What is pate? I don't even know what that word means. My non-verbal autistic cousin catching a snowflake in his hand. I mean, he's basically doing this, by the way. He's just like, he's writing in a way that really pops off on Twitter. Is a really commonplace, unfortunately, on Twitter. That's what he's doing. My non-verbal autistic cousin catching a snowflake in his hand. Pressure. I can only begin to fathom the weight he carries at this moment. Not merely a nation, but the world itself looks to him in expectation. The burden must be immense, although almost unimaginable. People have no self-respect. Like, how are you posting stuff like this with your name associated to it? You know what I mean? It's just like, he got May Must to post him on Instagram. Wait, what? Was reposted by May on 3/11/25. She's rather elderly and hasn't remarried since Errol. Is it Delulu of me to think that maybe the repost means something? I'm sure lots of guys tag her every day. I feel insane. I can't tell if like there are people who are sincerely replying to him or if it's all also irony posters. You know what I mean? The Clown World account responded to this. Was thinking of ordering some of this. Looks great. Drinking is fucking incredible. There's nothing like it. Nothing can ever replace it. I'll take a shot of that, lol. Oh my God. That's crazy. What is this? You are free to hate Elon Musk, but burning Teslas because you do not is just a crime. It's not just a crime. It's an act of political intimidation and should be treated as such. Straight up, you are one of the strangest looking individuals I have ever seen. It makes me sick, but banger thoughts and tweets like this keep me coming back like a hummingbird. Sip, sip, sip, nectar of knowledge. I can't get enough of you. I love Tesla. All right. Enough Elon posting. Enough Brace posts, okay? Why do people want it to be terrorism to dislike a car company? Because we live in very interesting times. Okay, I got it. Pate, not pronounced pate, is the bald spot on the top of your noggin. I got it. Thank you. Thank you, chatters, who have been correcting me nonstop. All right. I want to do... This is awesome. Am I forgetting anything? I cannot believe how much this man has captivated Twitter. It's crazy. Let's get started on the YouTuber car, or I guess like we'll get started on the news first and foremost. AOC and Bernie have been drawing big crowds, bigger than Donald Trump and bigger than they ever had. And I want to talk about what that means for the future of the Democratic Party if they will pay attention to what's going on here.
Stars in the progressive left movement drew big crowds in Colorado today.
After hosting a rally at UNC in Greeley, Senator Bernie Sanders and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez moved on to Civic Center Park in Denver. And that's where we find 9 News reporter Ria Jha. Ria, the crowd was certainly energized tonight.
People started showing up 3 hours in advance. A line just to get in wrapped around the entire block of Civic Center Park. And we spoke to people while they were showing up about why they came. And they said they were fed up with the current administration and that they needed to hear a message like this.
34,000 people showed up. Bernie's not running for anything. This is not an election campaign, okay? And yet, there are more people attending these events than even when Bernie was doing election rallies, when he was on a ticket, when he was running in the primaries. Like, it is crazy. If the Democrats don't recognize that the people demand more from them after all of this, I don't know what to tell you. If the Democrats don't recognize that, like, this is the way to show, this is probably the last for the people that think the Democratic Party is over. I totally get where you're coming from. Okay. For the people that are saying enough is enough, we've seen this song and dance many times over. I totally understand where you're coming from. I do. Okay. I don't have any confidence in the Democratic Party. I don't think that they have any real interest. I don't think that they have any real genuine interest in improving people's lives. Okay. And I don't think that they are going to take note of what Bernie Sanders and AOC are doing right now, specifically Bernie Sanders initially. But this is basically the lifeline. Can you explain why leftists on Twitter are mad at Bernie in your replies lately? A couple different reasons. One, there's the contingency of MAGA communists that are upset that, are saying that the real pathway towards revolutionary politics comes from being on board with fascism. Those guys are deluded. The other contingency of Twitter leftists are mad because they're mad all the time. They're Twitter leftists. And some of the reasons why they're mad are totally valid, like Bernie Sanders's, in my opinion, horrible approach to the genocide in Gaza. His lackluster approach where AOC outflanked him. Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib obviously outflanked him a long time ago. There are a lot of valid reasons to criticize Bernie Sanders on the issue of foreign policy. Voting for Marco Rubio as the head of the State Department. That's a horrible legacy that you'll be leaving behind. Some people are perhaps a little bit cynical in the way that they analyze the situation. Understandably, I'm not discounting that there are real valid concerns here, where people think that, Bernie is sheepdogging the new wave of progressives back into the Democratic Party in an effort to silence any kind of revolutionary potential. And I think that is another concern that people have. How the fuck are we cynical? Bernie is a cynical one. He doesn't give a single fuck about a single Palestinian. No, I'm saying that the anger that people feel towards Bernie Sanders with respect to his diminished response to the atrocities seen in Gaza is not a cynical criticism. I said that was the approach. Like, I understand why people are mad about that. I said that was valid. I also have genuine disagreements with Bernie Sanders on this. So the idea that all of the criticism is invalid is incorrect. I've never said that. Okay, I have not. That is something that I categorize as valid criticism. There are also cynical criticisms from people who just are MAGA communists or whatever. You know what I mean? That's it. Having said that, I think in the interest of charitability, the way I've approached this, the way I see the situation, and if people yell at me for I guess, quote unquote, platforming Bernie or whatever, I don't really care about that. I mean, you guys are just yelling into the wind. Who gives a shit? You're just farting into the wind. No one will even smell it. If anything, they're platforming me. Okay. It's a mutually beneficial relationship, certainly, but, you can't really platform a senator, especially one that ran for president, or one of the most, popular or infamous, depending on your political perspective, congresspersons in the United States right now. So on that front, I think those people are wrong, but it doesn't really matter. I don't really pay close attention to that stuff. Having said that, in the interest of being as charitable as possible, I think this is the last lifeline for the Democrats. Under our current existing duopoly, this is the last exit ramp for the Democratic Party to dramatically restructure its attitude, to dramatically restructure its policies, to actually build a strong base of support against the Republican administration's policy agenda as they actively dismantle the administrative state. And I think the reason why they're doing this is to show both the media, mainstream media, and also show the Democratic Party that there is a different way out of this. That if they continue with their third way neoliberalism, that they will not be able to ever defend the future of this country, and they will not be able to ever win ever again. And I think I don't think it'll be successful, but I do think that that is what they're trying to do. And as I've said, one thing that they should be doing, in my opinion, if I had a magic wand, or if I could like get in Bernie's ear, you know, and I guess like add some notes, even though who the fuck am I, right? He's been doing this for a lot longer than I have. My note on this would be to try to mobilize around individual issues that you care about. Mobilize around, like, not just organize and not just do an awareness campaign, but instead mobilize around specific issues and get all of these people to show up for specific issues. It's fine to do these kinds of massive rallies as well, but I think it's important to also, you know, do one of these sorts of rallies outside of like the detention center where Mahmoud Khalil is being held, right? To talk about how damaging it is that the Trump administration is revoking the legal permanent residency of someone over free speech grounds. This is, and how terrifying that is for the future of this country, how fascist it is. I think that is a show of force that goes along with your agenda, that goes along with your message, that also has a little bit of momentum behind it, that could potentially strike fear in the heart of this administration. And that's my attitude on this. I think you could do a two-parter. Yeah, Daniel Denver also is of the same mind here. Bernie and AOC should rally at Columbia against the repression. I think that's a fantastic opportunity. And I think that that's what they should be doing. And by the way, what they're doing right now, to give credit to a horrible monster, what they're doing right now is what the right has been doing with a lot of AstroTurf movements specifically. It's like what Marjorie Taylor Greene does. It's what Trump has been doing. So do more of it, but for good things, right? That's my attitude. I think it would be very smart to take all of this momentum and then try to use that discontent to make real, tangible changes. I think he's sticking to economic policies, hence the focus on oligarchy and workers. They're not going to rally around Palestine or Khalil. Yeah, except there is also a workers' rights issue there as well. Also, free speech is a fundamental value that protects workers anyway, or is supposed to protect workers in theory. What do you mean? In terms of Colombia, there is a really fantastic opportunity to drive home that message that Grant Minor, who was the leader of the Student Workers Union in Columbia University, who is Jewish himself, and also was studying, I think it was like Jewish classics, like medieval literature, specifically focusing on Jewish literature. That person was fired by Columbia for negotiating with Columbia a union contract, and also simultaneously unenrolled from Columbia in the process. It's completely ridiculous if you think that there's no workers' rights in this conversation. There's no economic focus on this conversation. Yeah, Iberian focus, Muslim, Christian, Jewish. Thank you. Yeah, Grant Minor got expelled as the head of the Columbia Student Union. He's Jewish. He was one of the student activists on campus as well. And that's part of what they used to dislodge him from this position, to undermine the potential bargaining power that the Columbia Student Labor Union has. It is completely unacceptable. So it's a lot of this noise is only as important as you make it. in terms of like what people are saying online, right? It's only as important as you think it is. So there's no reason for you at any point to give it any additional power. Just remember, it's just noise. Okay? So when you see people that are, you don't have to be charitable to Bernie, you know, you could be ruthlessly critical and still not be disrespectful. Wait, what? Ruthlessly critical? I think I am fairly critical of Bernie Sanders. Maybe it's just not up to your standard. I think Bernie Sanders' opinion on specifically Gaza post-October 7 is something that I have regularly criticized Bernie on, especially considering that he was leading the charge and moving the needle in the direction of anti-Zionist thought as a formative and very popular political figure in the United States of America. He was usually at the cutting edge talking about cutting funding to Israel before many other congresspersons ever even entertained the thought. He ran on it in 2016, and now he's completely outflanked by other congresspersons. It's unacceptable. But I think constantly having a back and forth over that is utterly unproductive. The reason why it is utterly unproductive is because I understand why you would want to. I understand why you would want to push Bernie into a more firmly established anti-Zionist position, but he's 800 years old. There's a likelihood that he's never going to get there. Okay, the way I talk about this is always the same. It's like you got Chuck Schumer on the one hand, so my battle is with him. My battle is not with someone who I agree with on virtually everything. And have a significant disagreement on because they're not sufficiently anti-Israel. My battle is with the likes of Chuck Schumer and the Republican Party, right? It's with Elisa Slotkin. It's not with like the few people that actually do try to criticize Israel to the best of their ability, but while still being severely limited in their criticisms. And leave much more room for offering charity to this apartheid state that is doing a genocide. Chuck Schumer and Bernie have zero daylight between them, regardless of Israel and Gaza. Yeah, I mean, you're wrong. That's just, sorry, you're just insanely wrong. That is psychotic. This is Twitter brain rot. But the distinction on this doesn't even matter at the end of the day. Like, I'm doing the thing again where I'm like seemingly defending Bernie Sanders or anything like that, where it's like, I'm not on this issue. There's no defense of Bernie Sanders, but you're wrong. And now my neurodivergence is causing me to course correct because you're just fundamentally wrong. And it's most likely a foolhardy endeavor because you've made up your mind on a delusional statement already. I used to say this about AOC as well. AOC, especially in terms of foreign policy, makes a lot of genuine mistakes, like fairly significant ones, or associating themselves with a dying movement within the party, right? We forget weirdly enough, that we must, one, be ruthless to systems, but be kind to people, as Michael Jamal Brooks, rest in power, used to say. Okay? But we are also endlessly more cynical about people that are closest to us in ideological positioning. It's very strange. We do it all the time. I try not to do it to the best of my ability. I fall into that trap too. It feels more, I mean, it has more impact when someone you expect to know better, like Bernie Sanders, doesn't do the right thing in times where doing the right thing is absolutely necessary. Like demonstrating moral courage is absolutely a necessity. I get it. I understand why it feels different when you hear from someone that you admire, right? But if you make a statement like, there's no daylight between Bernie Sanders and Chuck Schumer. I mean, here's Chuck Schumer.
The view of Palestinians is simple. Well, the Europeans treated the Jews badly, culminating in the Holocaust, and they gave them our land as compensation. Of course, we say it's our land. The Torah says it. But they don't believe in the Torah. So that's the reason there is not peace. They invent other reasons, but they do not believe in a Jewish state. And that is why we in America must stand strong with Israel through thick and thin. We must, because that is the
Like, this is the minority leader in the Senate for the Democratic Party. What a psychopathic thing to say. It's just utterly unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable. What the fuck do you mean? Oh, the Torah. Get the fuck out of here. What are you talking about? Oh, the Quran told me that we need to re-implement a caliphate, and the Jews don't want that. So I say, we have to support any kind of implementation of the caliphate. Like, if I were to run around saying stuff like that, you'd be like, what do you mean? What you want to do ISIS? Like, I don't understand. This is why I always say people who love Israel literally fucking behave as though they are ISIS supporters. And because there's a lot of institutional backing for that kind of sentiment, like, it's as though so many people, especially like, this is a Jewish American who has retained the highest office that any Jewish American has ever had. Think about that. Think about what that means, right? As a Jewish American in the highest office that any American Jew has ever had in the United States of America, you stand on the stage at AIPAC and you basically present the Jewish version of ISIS and you associate it with Judaism. And you think that this is like a positive association. It's so psychotic. I'm sure it's positive in that crowd, but that is a psychotic thing to say out loud. Maybe it's because as a dude whose name is Hassan, living in post 9/11 America, I just cannot ever wrap my head around how people would offensively use this kind of association as a positive in broad daylight, educating Americans on this false conflation that Israel is Judaism and Judaism is Israel over and over again at a time when many Americans are waking up to the reality that maybe Israel is not great. It's so short-sighted. Even if you don't care about like the genocide, it's so fucking short-sighted in terms of self-preservation. You are so dumb for doing a dual loyalty trope, but wokely, thinking that like Americans are not going to respond to that. Thinking that Americans are not going to respond to that negatively and be like, okay, well, you taught me that this is for the Jews and it's because of the Torah. Now I'm believing a whole bunch of Nazi shit. Yes, I know this was in 2018, chatters. I know this is an old clip. It doesn't change the dynamic at all, and it doesn't change the reality of it. He still has these opinions. What are you talking about?
Reason, not any of these other false shibboleths, why there is not peace in the Middle East. Too many people don't understand that here in America.
Do you get it? Do you understand? Schumer was already getting his wish a decade before even a single rocket was fired. To this day, Israel justifies carrying out preemptive strike and starting the 1967 war based on a partial blockade from Egypt, but Palestinians is apparently just necessary medicine. Yeah. So for people like myself, when I heard this, I was like, that's why I always try to tell people to, like, I guess, be a little bit more charitable, because I know the societal attitude towards Israel until recently. Like, a lot of you guys are very passionate. Many of you just found out about it. And I'm not talking about Palestinians, okay? They obviously were very aware of the situation for their whole lives. But, like, there are many people in the West who are just, like, very, very understandably passionate about the situation because it's a genocide. It's, like, the worst thing you can do. It's the worst crime that you can commit against anyone. And so in that passion, you find yourself taking hardline stances and not understanding the position that certain people have, not giving people grace, and maybe even removing the nuance from the equation. And that's where that conversation takes place, where you're like, Chuck Schumer and Bernie Sanders, there's no daylight between them. No, that's not true. It's just simply not true. Is Bernie Sanders' statement, are Bernie Sanders' statements on Palestine appropriate? No, of course not. Having said that, the position still my position on this still holds. If every single congressperson had Bernie's attitude, Israel would not be able to do a genocide. Do you see what I mean? Like, imagine a world where every single congressperson was had arrived at Bernie Sanders' position on Israel, even if they were like liberal Zionists, which I think Bernie is. He's not an anti-Zionist, right? Like, there's no world in which, like, you imagine, like, when Bernie pushed for a ceasefire proposal and a bill to stop giving weapons to Israel, because he did that. Instead of having like 17 signatories, imagine if he had 100. Like, that's unimaginable. That's a world that doesn't exist right now. I wish for a future where we look to the likes of Bernie Sanders and we look to the likes of AOC as like moderates. I wish for that future, but that is not where we're at right now. So especially when you're doing politics, especially when you're mobilizing, especially when you're advocating for certain things, you have to remember what the broader audience and their attitudes look like. Having said that, I think Bernie Sanders could be saying a lot more about Israel. I think he does the classic thing where he just like hyper focuses on Benjamin Netanyahu, even though he will at times say that there is like Israel is engaging in morally repugnant behavior. Like, he will openly say that Israel is doing this, not just Benjamin Netanyahu. So he gets it to a certain degree, but I think that there is too much social conditioning, lived experience, and too much, I guess, hope in his mind as a guy who went and saw the kibbutzim, the kibbutz, to fully subscribe to the notion that is the truth, by the way. It's not even a notion. The truth that Israel is a fascist apartheid state that is currently doing a genocide. You have to recognize that. That is not, I understand why, and that's precisely why I understand why people think this is not like simply a difference that is reconcilable. This is an irreconcilable wrong that must be corrected. Okay?
In front of this crowd, these two didn't need any introduction.
In the hundreds of rallies that I have done, we have never, ever had a rally as large as this.
Thousands of people flooded the Civic Center to see Independent Senator Bernie Sanders and Democratic Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, drawn by a sense of urgency, fear, and frustration.
Well, the reason I'm here is I don't like the way this country is going right now.
Even before they spoke, the crowd knew what they were hoping to hear: accountability for the issues they care about.
I'm actually a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and I have so many patients who have Medicaid or Medicare. I'm afraid for the country.
On stage, AOC wasted no time challenging not only Republicans, but her own party.
And this isn't just about Republicans. We need a Democratic Party that fights harder for us, too.
Neither Sanders nor AOC spoke directly to Denver-specific issues like immigration enforcement in the city or the rising cost of living, instead focusing on national themes like raising the minimum wage.
You're a loser and a racist, and all your UR viewers are brain dead. Okay. Yeah. Don't ban this guy. I want to know what they mean when they say I'm a racist. I really want to know.
And taking on billionaires.
Is we will not allow America to become an oligarchy. This nation was built by working people, and we're not going to let a handful of billionaires run the government.
Both leaders finishing off with a reminder to the people: the power is with them.
No, it's not Bernie. Not Bernie. I got bad news for you. It's you.
I want you to look at every level of office around you and support Democrats who actually fight, because those are the ones that can win against Republicans. We are going to get through this.
It was one of many stops across the West this week, and tomorrow they will be in Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah, right now they're in Tucson today.
We're joined by someone who knows all about these issues and has warned about them in film and in politics. Michael Moore, the Oscar-winning filmmaker, has campaigned in previous cycles with Bernie Sanders. He's, of course, an author and a popular Substack columnist. Welcome back.
Did the guy respond about what I'm racist about, or did they just, like, move on? Did they say anything? No, that's it. Just that I'm a loser and a racist, and my viewers are brain dead. Huh. Interesting.
Thank you, Ari.
Where do you want to begin, Michael? Go ahead.
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, it's great seeing Bernie and AOC out there across the country. And it's starting to feel, I don't know if I should say this, it's way too early to talk about 2028 yet. Everybody's thinking about what we're going to do next year. I believe that Alexandria will be 35 by Inauguration Day in January of 2029. And perhaps historians will see this tour where Bernie and AOC barnstormed the country. Oligarchy versus democracy. And that introduced the idea of we need a whole new person, a kind of person in the White House that is going to fight for the people. And while Bernie may think, well, you know, maybe by 2028 he's going to be too old, you can see just how not old he is. It's just been amazing to watch the tour this week, and to think about.
God, I mean, it's interesting to see, you know, this is a moment of vindication for someone like Michael Moore. It's a moment of vindication for someone like myself as well. But like, I can't help but see the danger ahead and so close that I can't think about like who's going to run and what their chances are in 2028. You know what I mean? I'm sure he can't either. He basically said that.
That we have somebody like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to be the voice of, we have two full generations now of millennials and Gen Zers that are mad as hell at the world that they're being handed by the generations before them. And I can't live through another election where people stay home like they stayed home this time. I'm talking about liberal, lefty, Democrats, independents, people that by the millions stayed home on November 5th. And that costs us the election. There's more of us than there are of them. You look at every poll on the issues, the majority of Americans agree with Bernie and me and AOC. And yet millions stayed home. That's on the Democrats. And that has to change. And I'll just say one more thing. What I love about the tour is that Bernie is putting forth the idea that the Democrats have let us down on.
Some people are misunderstanding when I said 2028 is too far away. I heard some chatters going, oh, there's the midterms to worry about, right? And no, that's not what I meant either. Like we're only 3 months, not even 3 months in. I guess technically 3 months in. We're about to be in our third month of this administration, and look at the situation. Like we're not making it out. We're not making it out to the midterms, even if things go the way that they're going. And I'm being very serious about this. I'm being very sincere about this. I'm not fear mongering at all. The Trump administration is causing irreparable harm at an alarming speed. This is why, regardless of your opinions of the Democratic Party, and I certainly am not the biggest fan, like I don't care who does this right now, but you have to use every tool at your disposal, whether it be direct action, whether it be organizing, or whether it be hosting rallies, or whether it be even sometimes, you know, getting the Democrats, expecting the Democrats to do something. That's why I don't shy away from urging you to call your Congress persons, your congressional representatives, regardless of the fact that they rarely ever do your bidding. Because the moment that you just completely check out of that part of the process is a moment where it's over. You know, what are we going to do? Direct action in terms of like arming ourselves? Is that what your advocacy is? My goal is to avoid that reality. 800,000 Germans were arrested in the buildup to the Nazi regime and during the Nazi regime before World War II. 800,000. Many of them were killed in these camps. I don't want America to get to that point. So I'll use every tool in my disposal, which even includes trying to get Democratic congresspersons to still do the right thing, bring them there by force if necessary, in order to avoid that outcome, including Uber Eats. What are you talking about, dude? Some of you literally have lobotomies, I think. One of the many tools at your disposal. God, shut the fuck up. God, it's just like, I know you're joking. Here, I'm going to unban you so you can be like, I was just joking, actually. And then I'm going to ban you. Dude, I swear to God, it's over. It's fucking done. When I see stuff like this from, like-minded leftists who are just like, yeah, dude, keep eating that Uber Eats. Like, okay, dude. Yeah, you're right. I'm fucking phony. I'm a capitalist. I don't give a shit about anything. I'm just going to be fucking right-wing then. You know what I mean? Like, there's no locking in involved here, okay? It's all locking out. Is everybody's BDS or something? No, it's not. It's just people doing, like, fake, phony, I'm leftier than down nonsense. Yeah, I'm apolitical, dude. I'm fucking apolitical. Yeah, I'm right-wing. I'm a grifter. I'm a right-wing grifter. Oh, I'm so tired.
In such a profound way. We need people running for office as independents like Bernie does. He does just fine. Now, maybe in your state or your city, that's not the best thing to do. But less, Bernie is not a member of the Democratic Party. Neither am I. And there's a reason for that. It should be evident by now. And we're not going to survive. If we think the Democrats are the cavalry and the cavalry is going to ride in and save us, that's not going to happen. Not with these Democrats. I'm sorry. I hate to say that, but we need more independent people. There are people watching me and you right now that need to think about running for office next year, local office, state office, Congress. We need to primary these Democrats that don't have the guts and the courage. Our country is being dismantled right now, and we are watching it. And for us to do nothing, for some of us who should be thinking about what we're going to do next year, that it's almost criminal that we are even just sitting here talking about this when we need to be out there. We should be in the streets. We should be running for office, and we should quit thinking the Democrats are going to save us. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. You're going to get a lot of emails and calls from people. Why are you having Michael Moore on? But I'm sorry. I can't go through another November 5th like we just went through. And in these 3-4 months since then, what we're watching happen every day, every hour you turn on MSNBC and it's something else. What was it 2 hours ago? Oh, they're dismantling the civil rights office of the Department of Homeland Security. And if anything has proven that we need a civil rights office in Homeland Security, it's what has happened to Khalil in the last couple of weeks. This is the Columbia University graduate student who was arrested and disappeared to Louisiana, not committed a single crime, not accused of a single crime. All he has done is to try and stand up for his people, the Palestinian people, with his freedom of speech rights that he has as a legal permanent resident of the United States of America. And the fact that we have
I'll jump in, although I let you run it for a while, Michael. But you made a lot of good points. That issue you raised, along with the deportation clash across this whole week, is about whether we will have the liberty that the founding fathers set as a baseline and had to be expanded over time as we expanded who really was a human being. It's a longer history. But the core idea was you can't have a king snatch people up, accuse them of things, and disappear them, as you said. Now, if through a process you satisfy the requirements and the person has due process and rights and counsel, there are reasons why people, of course, can be removed. But you have to prove that. If you can't prove that, which they haven't had to because they deported these folks on the planes and the example you give, then anybody can be snatched up. I mean, that's the whole reason why these are question is king-like powers. Your first point is really profound. You say people might not like it, but the Republican Party was fraying, and it got a boost of MAGA, which went against a lot of its core values, but became this cult of Trump. But it papered over that sclerotic party. And then people say he took over. And the Democrats, from what happened to Bernie, which we've covered in the initial time he ran against Clinton, to a lot of the other problems the party's had, also have these complete credibility issues with the public. So we're watching a public that doesn't think either party's that great. I could show you the numbers today, and I could show you the numbers a couple of years back. It's what you said. And so the larger grassroots question is who's going to step up and meet that. So I appreciate what you said there. I want to give you more time, and I want to show you something on prices because all the way back to Flint, Michigan, we ignore the working people at our peril in a country like this, as you've documented. And so here's the double talk from MAGA on what people do care about, which is jobs and prices.
Are you expecting agricultural products to be more expensive as a result of tariffs, Secretary?
When they voted in November of 2024, they knew that's what they were voting for. There may be an interim period as we're readjusting the entire economy. But listen, real change takes disruption.
I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one. I want on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost, who uses the word? I started using the word. The groceries. Starting the day I take the oath of office, I will rapidly drive prices down.
Prices aren't down. Markets are down, and tariffs are up. Is this a bait and switch? Go ahead.
That was the word, groceries. Okay. Listen, this is the gift of Trump, if I could put it that way, that he has already started to turn his own people against him. They're not quite there yet, but when they start going to the doctor and there's no Medicaid payment, and they're going to have to pay that doctor for their children and all of that. Just go down the whole list of things that is going to cost them more and more money. It's going to be harder and harder to live. And they're going to understand that he's the one that made this happen. And maybe he's thinking, well, I'm really good at lying. And if you just say it long enough.
My fear is they won't. And the reason why I think that is not because of the cultish mentality, because some are in the cult and they'll never see it. But the real reason why people won't see it is because there's no active, deliberate attempt to make people understand that he's doing it. And without that, absent of that, he could just keep lying about everything. They'll just say, we haven't punished trans people hard enough. We haven't punished Mexicans hard enough. We haven't punished the Democrats hard enough. This is why I say, I don't have to be a supporter of the Democratic Party or a card-carrying Democrat to know that they have to do this messaging. Because as long as the duopoly still exists, I don't care about strengthening the Democrats. I care about making sure that we use them as a weapon to wield against the Trump administration. This doesn't mean that I'm a Democrat. This doesn't mean that I'm a liberal. This doesn't mean that I'm on board with the Democratic Party's agenda. I want them to fight. The Democrats are a tool to fight against fascism. As long as they exist, that is the unfortunate reality. Do you understand? Just like Bernie Sanders' impact was not simply about running and almost winning in the primaries. His impact, I think, most significantly was bringing these ideas to the main stage and showing Americans that these otherwise radical positions are not so radical. There is a politician out there that is advocating for the American working class's best interests. Using the existing avenues to garner support like this is phenomenally important. And I think a lot of people that want to maintain ideological purity don't recognize that. People that want to maintain ideological purity don't understand how important it is to present yourself in ways that is palatable to as broad an audience as possible. Never compromise on your values. But when you talk about issues, understand who you're talking to. That's why when I go on Theo Vaughn's podcast, I'm not compromising on my values, but my messaging is different than when I go on, the Deprogram podcast, right? This is just the way you communicate in a normal way. If you want your otherwise unpopular or not well-known worldview and perspective that most people inherently despise due to a century of Red Scare propaganda, if you want those positions to come across as palatable, you have to be fucking normal. And you have to use every outlet you can to keep moving the needle in that direction, to bring more people on board. That is my primary focus right now, because looking at the material conditions in the United States of America, analyzing the lack of class consciousness that the working class has here, I think there's still so much need for agitative propaganda to get people to understand that they're being fucked over by this system. A lot of you fantasize about a post-communist utopia when you live in one of the most reactionary countries, reactionary anti-communist countries on the planet. This is not about propping up the Democrats, but instead using their platform and trying to get them to understand, perhaps it's a foolhardy endeavor, and I certainly think so, by the way, but to get them to understand that you have to change trajectory and you have to focus on the material. You have to focus on policies. You have to talk about how Trump is harming American lives directly and drive a wedge between Trump and his base of support to the best of your ability and try to undermine the Trump agenda every step of the way. If you don't do that, you're done. That's it. And you might disagree with my methods, and that's certainly fine too. That's fine. Go ahead. You can disagree with me all day. It's not the end of the world. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. You do you, I'll do me. All right?
Price of eggs, price of eggs, price of eggs, price of eggs. That they'll go with that. I don't think so. I think the American people are smarter than that. And I know fellow liberals are watching this and going, Mike, no. But yes. And from, as you mentioned, Flint, Michigan. Flint, Michigan is the birthplace of the 8-month pregnant wife of Mahmoud Khalil. She was born and raised in Flint, Ari. She was a top student at Flint University of Michigan, Flint branch. Gave the graduation speech there about 8 years ago. She's now a dentist. She's Dr. Noor Abdallah from Flint, Michigan, American citizen. He's a permanent legal resident with a green card. And I'm sorry to go back to that, but I'm just saying that the people in the state of Michigan, which Trump won, in the Flint, Michigans, in the Grand Rapids, in the Pontiacs, all those places, he's not going to keep this up. They're already on to him. They're already on to Chainsaw Man. And I read this thing the other day, the Michigan Chainsaw Massacre, of how Michigan is already hurting by the things that he's done. People are wise. They will come along to this. They will realize this. The Republicans, there's this, what's his name? Andy Biggs. They're all getting just slammed at their town halls. He's doing a town hall. He said now that only Republicans can come to it. They're going to vet you and make sure only Republicans can get in the room. Andy Biggs, if you don't know, if you're watching this, is one of the 147 Republicans who, after a violent mob took over the United States Capitol on January 6th, and it took almost till late in the evening, near midnight, for the police and the National Guard to remove them from our Capitol. And then all the members of Congress and the senators came back in. And at 2 or so in the morning, now January 7th, 147 Republicans voted to overturn the 2020 election. They voted to overthrow the vote of the people. I'll exactly quote the New York Times. 147 Republicans who voted to, quote, overturn election results. And Reuters, Republicans, 147 of them voted to overturn the election. To me, I'm sorry.
Michael Moore does lib out a little bit too much for my taste.
Raised differently. That's the work of traitors. If you are voting, and you're voting just hours after an attempted overthrow of the United States Capitol, and then you show up and then you vote to say, no, we reject what the American people have said and how they voted. That's a treasonous act. And there were 147 Republicans who did this, including Andy Biggs, who only wants Republicans at his town hall. The American people
occupying this much space with January 6th related criticisms is wild. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I've taken a lot of shit for not wanting to throw AOC and Bernie out and giving them grace. I know where regular people are, and there are the people that represent us in the minds of normies, reachable libs, etc. Yeah. I'm not saying that AOC and Bernie Sanders are going to save us. I'm just saying that they are, as elected representatives with a lot of motion, with a lot of popularity, they are incredibly valuable tools at your disposal. Spending every waking moment yelling at them, I think this isn't to say you shouldn't criticize them, by the way, but the level of criticism I think that they receive from people that they're closest to ideologically is always funny to me, because it's there are so many more infinitely worse people out there in Congress. I understand why you'd be more upset at them, because it's like disappointing to see someone that you trust, right? That's not for you to police. It's not. But you know what my job is? My job is to try to find the most effective means of communicating certain desires that we all share. That's it. I'm not policing it. I'm just simply saying that while there is plenty of places to criticize these people on, you have to expand on your perspective and not have incredibly narrow horse blinders when analyzing the situation and then thinking that they are the worst people in Congress. Because many people do have that attitude. It's a strange way to appropriate, you know? You got Richie Torres and Chuck Schumer and many other people like that in the Democratic Party. Then you have the entirety of the Republican Party as well. You know, if you think that like the absolute worst people to constantly yell at is the likes of, AOC and whatnot, then you're just not, you're missing the forest for the trees. Ironically enough, until Ethan Klein quite literally changed his entire content to fucking psychopathically pursue every little thing I do and like lie about it and actively try to deplatform me and successfully deplatform others. The reason why I was always like, I don't give a fuck about what Ethan is saying about Israel, shut up, he's not your enemy, was for this reason. It was for this reason, because I was like, initially he had said a bunch of pro-Palestinian things, and I was like, yeah, there's no reason to constantly hyper-focus on what he's doing. And over the course of the past year, obviously his attitude changed dramatically, and he became like an insane Hosberist, an insane propagandist for Israel in that time frame. So that's the reason why I think it's there's a point that where it's understandable when you fucking start criticizing people more.
All right, moderates, watch out. The socialists are stepping up to fill the leadership vacuum in the Democrat Party. Bernie Sanders and AOC are hitting the road with their Fighting Oligarchy tour in red and blue states, taking aim at the usual suspects like Elon Musk and President Trump. But they are also throwing some shade at their own. Watch.
We need a Democratic Party that fights harder for us too. I want you to look at every level of office around and support Democrats who fight, because those are the ones who can actually beat Republicans.
You got guys playing defense, but they also play offense. Our offense is to remind us all and every person in this country, we are the wealthiest nation in the history of this world.
But the moderate wing of the party is doing their best to counter AOC. Democratic Michigan Senator Alyssa Slotkin fired this shot. Listen closely.
I can't just chain myself to the White House and become an activist full time, because you and others here are going to call me for things that you need. All of those things require me to be more than just an AOC. Everyone you mentioned has a lot of words, but what have they actually done to change the situation with Donald Trump?
I'm glad that they're showing the person that the Democratic Party positioned as their rising star, former CIA torturer Alyssa Slotkin, who just won her election in Michigan. She's the person who responded to the Trump joint congressional setting. You got two planks broadly in the Democratic Party. I almost called it the Republican Party. My strategy right now is to target centrist Democrats and try to program normie liberals to hate them for collaborating with the right wing. That's the opportunity we have now. Show that the left is the only thing that will fight Trump. That lets us earn trust, spread class consciousness, and promote Palestinian causes. Show that Chuck Schumer is supporting Netanyahu as Netanyahu is openly supporting Trump. That's what I see them doing right now, but they need to sharpen up. Yes, I 100% agree with you on this. And that is my strategy as well. And I think that is their strategy as well. I think they're trying to do that. Yeah. That's it. That's why I think they're doing this whole like Fighting Oligarchy tour and showcasing how popular it is, to show the rest of the country that there is a different way out of this, that there are real fighters out there. But those real fighters are not fucking moderate centrists. That's it. Yes. The moderate centrists like Slotkin think that they can go to their town halls and be like, no, I can't do anything. I'm not here to be an activist. Otherwise, I can't be a good legislator.
But if all else fails, the Bidens are looking for a comeback. NBC News reporting that former President Joe Biden and his wife, former First Lady Jill Biden.
Honestly, stop being so charitable to liberals that they're constantly criticizing leftists, doing populist propaganda. In the first swing, they turn on the workers and hold hands with the fascists. They're not allies. Okay. You have to remember something. Everyone's a liberal, and everyone's starting point is a liberal starting point. You yourself were probably a liberal at a certain point. It is literally the monoculture in this country, and if not the entire planet for the most part, with some notable exceptions. So saying like, oh, every liberal is one step removed from fascism at a time when there is no like real socialist alternative out there and real socialist vision out there, especially in the United States of America, is stupid. Use the resources at your disposal. The overwhelming majority of this community at a certain point in time, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, was an avowed liberal, if not libtarded, if not right-wing reactionary conservative. That's it. All right, what are you talking about? If you can arrive at the worldview that you have right now, then others can as well. Try to internalize, try to recognize where, at what step in this game did you have your mind change? Was it someone like myself? Was it something else? Was it your own personal experiences? And then figure out exactly what the pivoting point was for you, the pivotal point was for you, and then use that experience to convert others, to get them to see the truth.
Have been putting out some feelers to Democratic leaders and saying, look, you know, we can help you. We can do
I agree. They do need to. I agree with this, by the way. They do need to endorse Zoran and do a rally in New York City ASAP. Bernie and AOC can't have it both ways. They say, run as independent and we'll endorse you. And then they haven't endorsed Zoran yet with 90 days left. I agree. I think they absolutely have to use this momentum to endorse Zoran Mamdani. I'll do everything in my power to make that happen. The person who prevented me from falling into Gamergate rage now calls you anti-Semitic. How things change. Wait, it was Ethan Klein that prevented you from falling into Gamergate rage? That's so funny. Yeah. Yeah, well, the world is a crazy place, you know? With my political development, I think there was a time when Ethan and I were in the crosshairs of one another or at odds with one another. Not that I really paid attention to what he was doing back then, but, you know, having Jordan Peterson on and things of that nature, like that would have put me directly against him ideologically. And now we're back to that norm, I guess. Also, not to glaze you too much, but I really think they don't give you enough respect. 50K live viewers on their stream is larger than the biggest rally Bernie ever had. That really doesn't seem to sink in with them. It's all good. I think they understand it. Dude, first of all, a lot of people on their teams are members of this community. Some of them literally got involved in politics because of their initial interest being sparked by being members in this community. That's something you have to remember. So there are certainly people who do understand the value. Others within the orbit. Like there's to think that like Bernie and AOC don't know the importance of coming on to this broadcast is wrong. They do. They literally were willing to give me an hour of their time. And the only reason why it didn't happen is because they came in too late to the rally. Like they're not giving an hour to CBS. You know what I mean? Every now and then, maybe if you get it on the right time, you can get a Lex Fridman spot or a Theo Vaughn spot. But like most outlets are not getting that.
We can do anything else necessary to help Democrats recover the lost ground. And boy, it's lost, Janine. It is down to about 27%.
This is not a parody. Hamas caught me in the shower with shampoo still in my hair, running in a towel to my utility corridor in my apartment. No time to make it to the bomb shelter. This is real life in Jerusalem. This is a war crime and it has to stop. God, it's fun. It would be funny if it wasn't so disgusting. You know what I mean? I mean, it's still pretty funny. My shower was interrupted. We must do maximalist genocide. I spoke with Protein Mag's Jake Rom about how Israel's used Nazi propaganda tactics against Gaza while simultaneously using the specter of Nazism to justify its war, and how Israel must invent threats from abroad to continue fighting new wars. Man, think of the wasted soap.
So they've been in Delaware, I guess, for a little while. He's going back and forth to Washington, D.C. on the Amtrak, I know. But they're starting to put out some feelers. You know, you guys, I think you need some help from the two of us.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if no one calls, and I don't think they should sit and wait beside their phone. Look, Joe Biden and Jill, I think in the end, the mess that happened with Kamala Harris is going to be attributed to Joe Biden and to Jill, okay? But having said all that, I really want to talk about the message. They want someone who fights. They want someone who does actions, according to Elise Slotkin, actions over words. And, you know, does that mean that you don't talk about things that you get out there and you torch things or you burn things up. I'm not sure what that means. And plus, I think it's kind of crazy that they want to fight an oligarchy when I think it was Fetterman the other day said, I don't think the Democrats should use the word oligarchy. The American people don't know what it means. And I don't think they know what it means, especially Bernie Sanders, because he's a socialist. And the truth is that, socialists control pretty much every aspect of your society, and they want to fight the oligarchy. I mean, I don't quite get it all. But this is a whole bunch of...
What the fuck are you saying? A socialist controls every aspect of your life? What are you saying? Where? I don't know. I don't know what to do about this, but it's good that we look at this stuff because I hope you understand this is what half, at least, the country believes, if not more than half the country. Okay? This idiotic slop is coming from the most popular news commentary broadcast, okay? Fox News. I need you to understand, there are a lot more people that tune into this and subscribe to this notion than there are even Republican Party voters. It is unimaginably cooked, which is why I always find it funny when people are like, you know what? Fuck these guys. Fuck Bernie. He's not as radical as I want him to be. It's like, yeah, he's not as radical as I want him to be either, dumbass. But look at the situation. Look at the goddamn situation. A socialist is controlling every aspect of your life. It's like, where? Who? What are you talking about? God, the situation is so fucking bleak, dude. We got direct billionaires. The wealthiest billionaire on the planet has complete control over the administrative state and is using every opportunity to dismantle it. And this is the dumb shit that people are hearing and going, hell yeah, to. The notion that, like, socialists control every aspect of people's lives. Like, what are you saying?
Nothing from a whole bunch of nobodies because Donald Trump broke the Democrat Party. They don't have a message. They don't have a messenger.
This might be one of your few lived up opinions. If you think it's lived up to, like, actually exist in the real world and talk to real human beings who have some of the dumbest opinions of all time, then I don't know what to tell you. Then I guess I am lived up, Like, what do you mean? America is an incredibly reactionary country. Yeah, thank you. Literally, the first thing you learn as an organizer is to meet folks where they're at. We got to get realistic on moving people instead of focusing on ideological purity. Thank you. Exactly.
They just want to fight. They don't know what they want to fight about. Half of them are happy about what's going on with the torching of the Tesla vehicles. Nobody's coming out against it other than Ro Khanna and maybe Bernie Sanders. They're in the middle of an abyss. They don't know what to do. And, I think in the end, the party is going to be split. They say they're like the Republican Party when the Tea Party came in and kind of fractured it. They've got like two Tea Parties. They don't know who they are or what they're about. And, if final note, if AOC wants to say they're the party of the working Americans, don't let her forget that she wouldn't allow Amazon to come to Queens, that there were 25,000 jobs that would have been available, $4 billion in lost wages, $4 billion in additional business to local businesses. Don't even use the word AOC.
Just, I have the same question when she talks about fighting, wanting someone who fights and fighting the oligarchy. What does that actually mean to you as you hear it?
It means that we need representatives that want to be out there with the people, holding rallies and town halls, people who are talking about what's going on in the administration, the trade-offs of, Trump wanting trillions in tax cuts for people who earn a ton of money and that they're going to come and cut your Medicaid. She's talking about people that are open and honest and responsive, and people who admit what's going on, the harsh realities of what's going on in some blue cities, which is, she had been talking about it. And this week I've mentioned it every day, but Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson's new book, Abundance, is coursing through the conversation in Democratic circles. So, AOC and Bernie, you can call them radicals. They're democratic socialists. They're talking about things like, it should be a basic human right to have good health care and to have the right to a good education and a roof over your head and be able to make enough money to put food on the table. That's not where, listen, Democratic Socialists is the left side of the party for sure, but they are bringing in crowds. He has more people showing up to his rallies now than even when he was running for president, and he had big crowds at that moment. The reason, though, that this isn't a Tea Party movement within our party, at least at this point, is that you're not seeing progressives winning their elections. They're not primarying moderates and winning it all. Moderates were hugely successful in the 2024 election on the congressional and Senate level, which is part of what Elisa Slotkin's talking about. She won Michigan as a moderate Dem when Donald Trump won as well. But Pritzker's getting on the road, and these town halls, they're huge. 800 for Pat Ryan, 1,300 for Jason Crow. That's what fighting is. It's showing up.
Tea Party, Jesse. You know, when I think of the Tea Party, I think about smaller government and less regulation and lower taxes that pushed the Republican Party back to those roots. I'm trying to figure out, you know, if that, I mean, do they want more government, larger government? Is that where a fringe Tea Party would push the Democrat Party at this point?
Well, we know what they
want,
want, and no one wants it. It was DEI, it was trans surgeries, it was cash bail. It's been rejected, and it's all based in cities. The Tea Party was a national movement. It was intergenerational, and they won massive midterms. And it wasn't just in the House. They put Tea Party people in the Senate, and Trump came out of the Tea Party. So I don't see a Tea Party yet, but it could be fun to watch.
The Tea Party is not an analog because the Tea Party was an AstroTurf movement. The Tea Party also is aligned, not diametrically opposed to the agenda of the Republican Party. They just are basically Republican plus. This is the major difference between a real populist left movement coming from within the Democratic Party and outside of the Democratic Party. It cannot be astroturfed in the same way that the Koch brothers basically designed the Tea Party movement. It can't. No billionaire is going to fund a socialist movement. They're not, because it's, you know, inherently against their existence. They're not going to do that. So that's number one. Number two, the Tea Party is Republican plus, whereas Democratic socialists, socialists alike, and trade unionists even, and their advocacy is directly at odds with the advocacy of the Democrats. That's why they sign off on messaging bills that say communism will never come to the United States of America. Communism is bad. Nancy Pelosi and Bernie Sanders do not see the world in the same way. They don't. They are at direct odds with one another. Donald Trump and the rest of the Republicans, on the other hand, do see the world in the same way. Now, maybe the Republicans wanted to be more moderate, wanted to be more stable, and obviously resisted against Trump, but there's a reason why they fell in line. They fell in line because their worldview is the same, okay? The direction that they are moving in is the same. Trump did not invent anti-immigrant sentiment. He merely unshackled the dog whistles. He said, no more dog whistles. Just say they're rapists, dumbass. Just keep saying brown people do rape and serial murder. That's all the difference is between Donald Trump and what you used to hear from the normal Republican Party in the ways that Nancy Pelosi wanted a normal and strong Republican Party because he's a fucking idiot. Donald Trump read the room, saw the direction of the Republican Party, many of those opinions he already aligned with, and just unshackled the messaging. That's it. You have to truly believe that the Democrats are interested in social progress or advancing an agenda that will uplift the material conditions of working class Americans. You have to truly believe that they're being earnest and not simply using that as a messaging strategy to try and win votes to the best of their ability with no real interest in advancing that agenda. To think that Bernie and people like myself especially are basically on the same pathway towards progress as the Democrats are. I'm just like Democrat plus. That's not what it is. They want to maintain capitalism. They want to maintain late stage capitalism. They want to maintain neoliberalism in this country. That is their primary focus. Therefore, we are diametrically opposite to one another.
I'm afraid what it's going to look like if Democrats fight harder. They shot him.
I do think that there is a change happening, albeit slow. But a change is happening. Why do I think that? Well, I think that from my own personal experiences. Not only because I see so many people going to the Bernie rallies and whatnot, but I also see that in the way that like the media reception has been to even someone like myself. 10 years ago, there's no world that the media would openly call someone like myself a hard socialist. Only people that would call me that would be Fox News. 10 years ago, a person like myself would not be branded adequately by liberal outlets. They would just call me, he's the most liberal. He's super liberal. So that dynamic is shedding away a little bit. That the messaging is changing a little bit, and that's good. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. People are making that distinction, and I think that that is not a bad distinction to make. Anyway, it's interesting to also have this as the backdrop here, because while I'm talking about the minutia, this dipshit is talking about how a registered Republican that shot Donald Trump was actually secretly in the pocket of the Democrats. The Democrats put a hit out on Donald Trump. Yeah, totally, dude. That's how ballsy the Democrats are, which is why they voted for the fucking CR bill effectively. Like, how does that work? How do you live in a world where you think the Democrats wanted to fucking kill Donald Trump, like assassinate him, but also as soon as he came into office, they just rolled over and were like, please, sir. Like, how do these two things work at the same time? Registered Republican, incel, wearing some gun tuber merchandise, goes out of his way to make a name for himself by shooting at the fucking president. And they're like, this is the Democrats' fault. The very same Democrats that fucking keel over and give Trump everything he wants every step of the way. Ridiculous. It makes no sense. All you're doing by supporting Bernie/AOC is taking your very finite population of fans and making sure they remain Democrats for all eternity. The actual people who need to be reached are the tens of millions who are being taken by the right and you fail to reach them. Yes, dude, I know. If only I was more fucking racist, I would be able to reach those guys. I know, MAGA communists. You got it. You're right. Totally. It's just weird because the only motion you get with your pathway, with your way of changing people's minds is just normalizing the fucking racist sentiment, which is anti-materialist. It's stupid. Yeah, real Nazball revolutionary sentiment hasn't been tried yet. We'll eventually get there. Thank you, dude. You really got it. I'm glad that it's no longer just a fucking meme flag online, and it's now a real robust movement, according to you. Yeah, one day you'll be able to penetrate the working class consciousness and get them to recognize their class position. You'll be able to agitate appropriately, and you'll be able to instill class consciousness in the working class. Just, you know, keep saying that transgender people are mentally ill and a bunch of ableist slurs and shit, and like you'll inevitably reach them. I promise. Yeah. If I say the R word, if I say the R word a couple more times and call people the F slur or whatever, I'll be able to truly get real working class people on board, because that's how they speak. Sure. Okay. That is how they speak. Got it. So what? Your job isn't to fucking, your job shouldn't be to lean on the reactionary tendencies that they have. Your job is to move them away. Hassan, centrist, right-wing griftarch. What? Yeah. It's so funny that, like, these guys, a lot of MAGA communists, their starting position is despising the Democratic Party. And that's understandable. It's understandable to despise the Democratic Party. It's a bourgeois party under the duopoly that still is very much on board with maintaining capitalism, right? It's the controlled opposition party. And yet, what you're doing is literally the exact same thing that they're doing. They also are like, let's just drop the trans stuff, actually, fuck it. And maintain neoliberalism that way. Okay, good luck. Like Lenin said, the point is not to tail the working class, but to lead them. Yes. Why do you avoid talking about their party, the ACP bullshit? Because I don't care. It's irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. And if they're doing like real direct action in terms of like helping people out in communities and whatever, great. If they actually, if they're, actively spreading anti-capitalist thought, good. Okay. I think I think there's a whole bunch of reactionary garbage there, and I don't personally care about it. And it's the nicest thing I can do is to not yell about them all the fucking time.
Yeah.
They fined him $500 million. They tried to strip him off the ballot. They impeached him twice. They had a guy with a gun show up to a Supreme Court justice's house after they accused him of rape. I mean, literally, what more can you guys do? The only thing that you haven't done is shut down the government. Be my guest. Because then we'll find out who is really an essential worker. But you're right, Jessica. You actually define fighting better than I've ever heard anybody. Because right now, your party thinks fighting is like throwing a cane at Trump. That's not fighting with a little sign. That's nothing. I think what you guys need to do is recruit, raise money, and with the midterms. Great. And then you can start doing things.
We had our
nice straw man you got there. Why don't you advocate for already existing communist structures in America? What's the already existing communist structure that you want me to advocate for? Why don't you just say it out loud?
President.
Because until it reaches a real point, okay, and until they shed themselves of their reactionary tendencies, and it reaches a real point of momentum when there's like actually people, you just want me to talk about your fucking splinter Discord, okay? And I'm not going to do that. It's the same reason why I don't talk about like Baba Vakian all the time or whatever bastion of new Larishites that exist. I don't care about your 30-person splinter Discord. You are from our blood report about Turkey. You born in this land, and is your content already come on? But I don't know why people think I haven't talked about Recep Tayyip Erdogan arresting Imamoglu. I did. I talked about it extensively, and I will cover it. I will cover it again. Where is this coming from? Like, people think that I haven't been talking about this issue. There's also people that come in here and they're like, why don't you even post on Instagram? I have as well. What the fuck?
And Trump is ramping up attacks against the federal judge at the center of a deportation standoff with his administration in a contentious.
It's a bourgeois duopoly, guys. Supports Bernie and AOC Glaze Kamala. Why are you upset and can't openly admit what you want me to say? Why are you making up a bunch of shit they didn't say? It's a bourgeois duopoly, guys. Supports Bernie and AOC and Glaze Kamala. Glaze Kamala is very funny. I like that you said, why are you making up a bunch of shit they didn't say? And then openly recognize a thing that I did say that you seemingly agree with. And then follow that up with like just the things that I've never said. Come on, man. Come on. Say what you mean. What do you want? Who do you want me to support? Just be open about it. Hassan, watch out. All 30 Discorders are attacking people. Yeah. I am the Schrodinger's political commentator who is both all powerful and has no motion at the same time, because like I have the capacity to make political campaigns or break them. I also didn't sufficiently. I didn't support Kamala Harris and secretly wanted Trump to win, but I also simultaneously glazed Kamala Harris and really loved Kamala Harris and am a phony person who just wants to sheepdog people back into the Democratic Party. At a certain point, you will realize that I'm just a fucking Twitch streamer. Do I have a lot of influence? Absolutely. Okay? I do. I recognize that. I try to use it for good. And simply yelling at me is not actually engaging in revolutionary action. You're just a fucking moron yelling at a Twitch streamer. You're doing parasocial stan or hater behavior, but you're masquerading it as like revolutionary thought, which is insanely, it's even funnier than people who are just like, no, I really have a parasocial relationship with the streamer and I love him, or hate me on other virtues. You don't have to like try to, what? If you want to vote for PSL or some other openly communist parties, not class enemies Democrats. I'm sorry, did I tell people not to vote PSL? I mean, I think that they're great at political activism. Their election strategy leaves much to, their election strategies are not great. But having said that, the only group that I actively came after was Jill Stein and the Green Party. And the reason for why I did that wasn't because, the reason for why I did that is because I just don't believe that they're serious. They're not.
Just hearing yesterday, Judge James Boasberg accused the Trump administration of disrespecting the court and ignoring orders after they deported suspected Venezuelan gang members last week. Boasberg is still considering whether their use of the wartime alien enemy's power is legal, but
What? We have infinitely more influence in having conversations with our community members than you do, simply by virtue of them being our neighbors, friends, and families. I love the work that you do, but chatters can recognize their influence too. I agree. That's what I try to explain to people all the time. That, like, if you think you're behaving in a... if you think personally that you are engaging in revolutionary acts and doing praxis by simply watching my fucking broadcast, you're delusional. It would be meaningless if that's what I thought was the path for change. Is just like, if you watch enough of my broadcast, if you subscribe to me hard enough, that real socialism will be implemented in this country. I've never said that. I think it's fucking idiotic. That's why I always remind people that without all of you going out, talking to other people, trying to instill class consciousness amongst your friends, amongst your neighbors, without all of you going out and engaging in community organizing, engaging in direct action, engaging in protest, and trying to expand class consciousness, and simultaneously unionize your workforce, joining PSL or DSA or many other organizations like that. Without doing all of that, if you don't do any of that, then yeah, this is meaningless. What do I always say? In spite of all of the insanity, the reason why I think this is incredibly worthwhile is because you're doing all of that. That's what keeps me going. And there are a ton of people in this community that have actually went out and won local office, that have actually become community organizers. That's why whenever I link up with, activist groups like Water Drop LA, the dudes that are there, they're Hasanabi heads. When I go to the Bernie rally, the same thing. When I go talk to labor unions, it's the same thing. That's it. That's why I do what I do. That's why I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, because I think I have to the best of my ability, a decent opportunity to change people's minds. That's how it goes. That's where this is.
Ban against such deportations remains in effect for another week. The president is spending part of the weekend at his private club in Bedminster, New Jersey. Nicole Skanga is in Bridgewater. Nicole, good morning.
Good morning, Meg. The president starts his day here in New Jersey before heading to Philadelphia to watch the NCAA Wrestling Championships. But as you mentioned, a very different face-off took place in a courtroom yesterday as a federal judge voiced skepticism over the Trump administration's use of that wartime power.
A grilling from the federal bench, the latest chapter in a high-profile showdown between the president and the judiciary, following the deportation of 200-plus Venezuelan nationals, including suspected gang members, to a high-security prison in El Salvador.
They're bad people. We don't want them in our country. We can't let a judge say that he wants them. He didn't run for president. He didn't get much more than 80 million votes. And we just can't let that happen.
Presiding over the landmark case, federal judge James Boasberg. In court yesterday, the federal judge rebuked the administration for ignoring his order to turn the planes around 1 week ago, mid-flight, until he could review their cases, and accused Deputy Assistant Attorney General Drew Ensign of using disrespectful language and missing deadlines. Did you not understand? Boasberg asked the lawyer for the Justice Department. Advanced Democracy, a nonpartisan research nonprofit, found President Trump's made at least 34 posts referencing the judiciary in recent days, with at least 10 criticizing legal decisions that limit his authority. Lawyers for some of those transferred to the high-security prison in El Salvador last weekend argued in court filings they weren't gang members at all, including the Venezuelan professional soccer goalie, Erce Reyes Barrios, who claims the U.S. government misinterpreted his soccer tattoo as a gang symbol, with no legal recourse before being transported to El Salvador.
The government actually just wants us and the American people to believe what it says without any process or any evidence at all.
Sky Perryman of Democracy Forward is co-counsel representing the plaintiffs in the case.
Are you concerned that there are individuals sitting in a high security prison in El Salvador right now that have been falsely accused of being TDA members?
We are deeply concerned about that. And this is something that should concern every single American in this country.
And in a separate move overnight, President Trump revoked the security clearances of former President Joe Biden, former Vice President Kamala Harris, and several former top administration officials, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Another former Secretary of State on that list, Hillary Clinton. Michelle?
Nicole, thank you.
Now to that late afternoon notice from the Trump administration to revoke the legal status of potentially more than 500,000.
Yeah, there's also this. 500,000 immigrants that got TPS under Biden, which was an extension of the Trump program as well, which is something that the American government has done time and time again, is now being revoked. Cubans, Nicaraguans, Haitians, and the like. What is this? Hassan has literally said it shouldn't be the nexus of our organizing. He's just a newsman and stands on that. Some of Haas Twitter seems to confuse stand behavior with activism. It's not. Go find your local mutual aid group, PSL chapter, PSL branch, DSA chapter, and volunteer to help out. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Watching me is not activism, okay? I'm only one person, and I do this. I do what I do because I think I'm good at it and because I think I can urge others to also go out and join the fight. That's my impact. That's my momentum. I can only show you others who are also brilliant, like-minded people such as yourselves and other content creators, show you journalists and all this stuff. A lot of those ACP dudes infiltrated Hollywood too. I don't care. Those guys are just, they're making noise.
Immigrants currently living in the United States. This as we are learning more about the Venezuelans deported under the 18th century wartime law. I'm joined now by immigration reporter Camila Montoya Galvez to help us unravel all of this. First of all, Camila, let's start with 500,000. Remind us again what that program was supposed to do.
The Trump administration, John, is moving aggressively to dismantle President Biden's immigration legacy, and they are now in the process of terminating a process known as CH&V that was set up by the previous administration as a way to reduce illegal immigration at the U.S.-Mexico border by offering would-be migrants a legal and safe way to come here without the use of a smuggler and without the use of illegal entries into the U.S. About 500,000 people from Cuba, Haiti, Venezuela, and Nicaragua entered the U.S. under that process, which required American sponsorships from people who were citizens or legal permanent residents here. And in the next 30 days...
So what's the point of following you as a leftist? To have a community of like-minded people that sometimes have fun, but other times are paying attention to what's going on, not only in the United States of America, but all around the world. What did you think the point was? What do you think I do here? What? I'm actually trying to figure out what you mean by this, like what you're talking about. I was under the impression this was a revolutionary vanguard training camp, that when you say trigger words, we're all going to lock in and become sleeper agents. Yeah, it is. It's true.
Their work permits and deportation protections will be lapsed and terminated by the Department of Homeland Security, which is warning that if these people do not voluntarily depart the country, John, they will be found, arrested, and deported from the country. In fact, the administration is saying that the people affected by this policy change should sign up to self-register on a smartphone app provided by the government and tell people that they will be departing the country.
Okay, tough to keep track of it all, but you've been keeping track, of course, of those Venezuelan migrants that have been sent to El Salvador. What more do we know about that group?
Well, not only have the deportations to El Salvador triggered this contentious legal battle here in the U.S., John, but also a debate about who was actually sent to that Central American country. The administration is saying that all the Venezuelan men it sent there, 238 Venezuelan nationals, are part of the notorious transnational gang known as Tren de Aragua. But we have spoken to relatives and lawyers of the deportees, and they are strongly refuting those claims, saying that their loved ones and clients have no criminal records in the U.S. or abroad, and that they are not affiliated with this vicious gang. And they have actually presented to us documents that do, in fact, confirm that many of these deportees do not have criminal records. I will say that some officials have said that some of them do have criminal records, so we should underscore that.
My husband may not be a legal American citizen, but he's a human being, and he has rights.
Only on Action News Jax, a Middleburg family begging for help after they claim that ICE officials are threatening the husband, who is an Indian national, with immediate deportation and criminal charges. I'm Tanika Hughes.
And I'm Ben Becker. Action News Jax' Jake Stofan is live from the family's home in Middleburg. And Jake,
After you started asking questions, they got a new message from ICE.
That's right. Just within the last hour, I heard from the family's attorney that the husband has now been given until Saturday to purchase a plane ticket back to India and leave the country voluntarily. Now, this comes after the family says ICE officials came to their door this morning demanding the husband come out and threatening him with criminal charges and saying they would come back with a warrant when he refused.
I mean, that's good that they didn't open the door. That's what you're supposed to do.
I cannot leave my kids and my wife. I can't.
Tapan Purohit and his wife, Ashley Kennedy Purohit, feel they're living a nightmare. Tapan came to America on a J-1 visa in 2011. It expired in 2013. Last year, he married Ashley, and they filed an I-130 marriage petition in hopes of regaining his legal status.
I prayed so hard that God would send me a good, kind, loving man that would finally be that piece that was missing in our lives, and he did.
Things took a turn last December when Tapan was arrested and charged with resisting an officer without violence, a charge that was ultimately dropped. But over the next few months, he was ordered by ICE to purchase a plane ticket for removal, which he did. According to the family's attorney, they filed a series of emergency motions, hoping to delay his removal to give time for the marriage petition to be processed. His motion to delay his deportation was denied on March 11th, but two of those other motions are still pending.
At that point, our attorneys had told us to go ahead and cancel the plane tickets, that we had motions filed so that we should have time to be able to continue to petition and pursue.
But according to the family, ICE officials arrived at their home this morning demanding Tapan come outside to be taken into ICE custody for deportation. He did not. The family claims ICE officials told them they'd return with a warrant and charged Tapan with failure to comply with supervised release.
And at that point, they can kick our door down and come in front of my children and take my husband in front of them.
Ashley argues her husband still has a right for the motions to be heard. Tapan and Ashley run a local business and argue they're good, hardworking Americans, not criminals. But they claim throughout this process, they've been treated as less than human by ICE officials.
I said, my wife is pregnant, so, so he said, oh, that's not your kid, that's her kid.
Ashley says she feels like this sudden rush is being driven by a numbers game intended to fulfill a political agenda rather than ensure public safety.
It's
Yeah,
just
no
another
shit.
check on the box.
I mean-
we deported 1,001
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. There's no, it's also because it's built on a lie. It's built on a lie. There's no massive amounts of undocumented migrants that are responsible for incredible amounts of violent action and criminal behavior. It's just made up.
people today, and Taban gets to be that 1,001.
And yes, it's not necessarily just a lie that the Republicans told. It's one that the Democrats also played along with, refused to fight against, refused to combat. And here we are. Oh, I hate this.
Now, the family's attorney tells me she's holding out hope those two outstanding...
Yeah, this is how all the Indians will be dealt with when they're done with the Muslims. The Indian Nationals, BJP, and Hindutva think they're a part of the in-group. They're not. And you know who is also not a part of the in-group, even though they're much more firmly a part of the in-group than Indians are right now? Jews. They are eventually going to go after Jews too. Okay? They're already going after Jews that are anti-Zionist, but they'll go after all Jews eventually. You're a fucking idiot if you think, if you're a Jewish American and you're like, nah, dude, Israel, yeah, am Israel high. Yeah, these guys are actually doing the right thing by going after these like naysayers, these Arabs, these pro-Palestinian protesters. Like, you're a fucking dumbass. You're basically literally clapping like a seal for your own demise in the exact same way that it happened once during the fucking Holocaust and many times over before then in pogroms. You're so fucking stupid. No, as a Jew, I say, is Israel high? Okay. Ay, ay, ay.
Emergency motions that are currently sitting...
And we're taking...
It's ironic because a lot of the anti-Semitic sentiment is directly caused by the Trump administration coming out and being like, coming out and basically behaving in the way that like David Duke says the American government operates as. Americans are stupid, but even they recognize when the fucking Trump administration is saying Shalom Mahmoud, okay, as they're deporting someone for exercising free speech, you're definitely creating a lot of resentment. Jews should be the first people to recognize how dangerous that kind of association is. It is shocking how fucking short-sighted Zionist Jews are in this country. It is literally it is so alarming that they don't understand what the fuck is up right now.
You behind the scenes of the complicated immigration process here in the U.S.
Well, it's left one man in legal limbo after he was brought to the U.S. from Liberia when he was just 2 years old. Rodney Taylor has lived in Georgia for decades, applying for citizenship only to be denied. Well, recently, ICE arrested him, and right now he's facing deportation.
11 Alive's Caitlin Ross is uncovering the difficulties navigating the immigration system, even as journalists seeking answers about this case.
It's easy to talk to Rodney Taylor.
I'm a people person, so I love dealing with people, meeting people every day, making them look good.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, deport that guy to Liberia. He's definitely Liberian. Dude's been in here since the age of 2, man. The fuck are we doing? Like, that is an American, okay? That is an American through and through, okay? What are we doing?
We met Rodney trying to help people who sit in his chair through a program where barbers talk to clients about...
Oh, I don't get it. I thought that they were arresting rugged criminals. What's happening? This doesn't seem like they're arresting and deporting rugged criminals. You know, what's that about? I'm shocked. I'm shocked to find out that we are not actually fucking deporting serious criminals and instead deporting guys like this.
Lung cancer screenings. Rodney told us making those connections comes easy.
Once they feel comfortable in their surroundings and know what type of person you are, they feel more comfortable to open up to you.
It's what's happening to him now that he says is so hard to connect.
All right, we're trying this again. Okay, so is it working? Rodney!
Hey!
Oh my gosh, we finally connected.
He was arrested by ICE and is now not behind his chair, but behind bars.
It's a life-or-death situation.
To understand, we have to go back to 1980 when Rodney's mother brought him to the U.S. from Liberia. He was 2. Born with clubbed hands and feet, she brought Rodney here for amputation surgeries under a medical visa. He's lived here ever since, but his applications for citizenship have been denied.
I feel like I'm at my wit's end. You know, I rely on prayer.
That's because Rodney pled guilty to felony burglary charges when he was 16. 16 years later, the Georgia Parole Board pardoned that conviction.
Oh my God.
But the crime makes him ineligible for amnesty programs for minors. ICE officers cite the burglary case on his detention order now.
They're still trying to prosecute me for something I did 30 years ago as a child. It's hard to swallow.
Hard, but not uncommon, says immigration expert and attorney.
Wow, thank God they got this criminal off the streets, dude. Thank God. Truly sociopathic behavior. A Time photojournalist was on hand in El Salvador as prison guards beat a man who's likely to be Andre, a gay Venezuelan barber / makeup artist who was seemingly falsely accused of being a gang member and renditioned by the Trump administration with literally no due process. One young man sobbed when a guard pushed him to the floor. He said, "I'm not a gang member. I'm gay. I'm a barber." I believed him. He began to whimper as his head was roughly shaved, folding his hands in prayer as his hair fell. He asked for his mother and cried as he was slapped again. Earlier today, the media released a list of names of people from Venezuela that were forcibly removed by the United States to an El Salvador mega prison. Our client, Andre, was one of them. Yeah. The full story is here. These are first-hand accounts from an American photojournalist on the scene. Remember, the Trump admin has offered zero evidence for any gang ties to any of these people and refused to permit them any way to prove their innocence. God. Yeah, it's there. This is happening already. This is what I mean when I say fascism is here. Okay, we have already dipped our toes in the waters. We are pushing our whole body into it. This administration will eventually do these exact same acts of cruelty to you and a loved one.
Charles Cook
shows you how complicated immigration law is. Somebody who's been pardoned by the state, been forgiven, moved on with his life,
Now, decades later, ICE comes along and says, hey, we're going to arrest you and deport you to a country you don't know.
The latest Pew Research poll shows 59% of Americans approve of increased efforts to deport people who are undocumented. Over the last several weeks, 11 Alive has reported on the uptick in ICE arrests in metro Atlanta and across the country under President Trump's administration. ICE data shows that includes immigrants with criminal records, but also a 221% increase in immigrants without criminal records.
The reality is our laws have not changed. Our laws haven't changed in 30 years. What's changed is how they're...
By the way, most of the people that have a criminal record, that have like actually violent crimes on their record, are people that are already in prison. They're deporting people from prison to pad the stats. They're also deporting people with minor criminal records, like the dude who got his fucking record expunged from when he got arrested for aggravated assault or burglary at the age of 16. He's 46 years old. So there are people whose records are being expunged after the fact, and they still are hitting them to pad the stats with 50% of the people that we're apprehending are criminals. And then you look through individuals and the crimes that they've committed, and it's all like minor offenses, like trespass. Dudes are getting deported for trespassing after living here for 15, 20, 30 years. Think about that. They're not arresting, apprehending, and detaining like rapists and murderers. And even then, I don't believe that we should be fucking deporting rapists and murderers anyway. We should be prosecuting them to the full extent of the law. Like, what do you mean? The fuck? I don't want them to get a free trip back home.
Enforced.
We talked to a spokesman from ICE who told us the removal case against Rodney is moving forward because they do not accept the type of pardon he received.
Oh, great.
The Department of Justice told us it has no record of Rodney's case and won't until he's charged. But 3 months after his arrest, that still hasn't happened. Behind bars, Rodney is trying to stay positive, helping other detainees get ready for their court dates.
They allow me to cut hair, do what I do, pass the time.
He's hoping to get back behind the chair for good.
As long as I feel like I'm helping somebody, I feel good.
Reporting in Tucker, Caitlin Ross, 11 Alive News.
And immigration officers told Rodney he would be deported 3 months after he was arrested. And so that would be this week. But he says he still has not had a court date. We'll keep you posted, though.
Jasmine Mooney is...
Oh, yeah. This was a Canadian citizen that was in 12-day detention by ICE. This is another insane story. And it's a white lady, I think, so of Canadian background. So maybe this is what'll get the liberals on board,
is a Canadian citizen who had a work visa, no criminal record, and had been traveling back and forth between Canada and California without any complications until she says she was suddenly detained without explanation at the San Diego border when she tried to reapply for a new visa. Writing in The Guardian, quote, I was taken to a tiny freezing cement cell with bright fluorescent lights and a toilet. There were 5 other women lying on their mats with aluminum sheets wrapped over them, looking like dead bodies. The guard locked the door behind me. For 2 days, we remained in that cell, only leaving briefly for food. The lights never turned off. We never knew what time it was, and no one answered our questions. No one in the cell spoke English, so I either tried to sleep or meditate to keep from having a mental breakdown, excuse me. I didn't trust the food, so I fasted, assuming I wouldn't be there long. She added, quote, I was told to shower, given a jail uniform, fingerprinted, and interviewed. I begged for information. How long will I be here? I don't know your case, the man said. Could be days, could be weeks. But I'm telling you right now, you need to mentally prepare yourself for months. Ultimately, Mooney says she spent 12 days in detention before she was finally allowed to book herself a flight back home to Canada. Joining us now, Jasmine Mooney. I was blown away by what you wrote in The Guardian. Explain what happened.
I mean, I'm still processing what happened. I got out and it really feels like a dream or a nightmare, but I still really don't know how I ended up there. but now I am really trying to use my voice to tell people what's going on, because I really don't think a lot of people know what's going on in there.
Why weren't you allowed to book yourself a flight back home?
I have no idea. I assume that if there were a denial with my visa, I would just book myself a flight and head back home. Apparently, because I had one denial before, and then my other visa was voided. So for some reason, they said that they had to send me back to Canada, and I was literally booking my own flight to go home. And then that's when I was taken, and then I was in there for 12 days, and not a single person talked to me the entire time that I was in there about my case.
Why do you think you were not given the opportunity? Do you feel like you were being used to send a message to others?
You know, I've been trying to come up with every explanation that I can, and I truly don't know. I was in there, I met around 200 other women who, none of us had a criminal record. Everyone's story was different, a lot of the same. A lot of women, I believe, should not be in there. And what I found is the issue wasn't about getting deported. A lot of women admitted that they overstayed their visas. It's just what the issue that they have is the process of getting out of there. It is next to impossible. There is no communication. You do not have an officer to talk to. You can't contact your lawyers or your friends or your family. I was transferred twice in 2 weeks, which is an awful experience. There were girls in there who had been transferred 8 times in a couple weeks. So the whole system just felt super rigged to keep us in there. That's what it felt like.
Well, because you write, this is an interesting part of the article. You say companies like CoreCivic and GEO Group receive government funding based on the number of people they detain, which is why they lobby for stricter immigration policies. It's a lucrative business. CoreCivic made over $560 million from ICE contracts in a single year. In 2024, GEO Group made more than $763 million.
Yeah, they were salivating at Trump's electoral victory. I played their report, their like quarterly earnings report, and how excited they were at the new election. GEO Group is tasked and ready to take advantage of the new wave of mass deportations and mass arrests, and set up new detention centers. Insane.
Canadian Airlines are taking away.
Here's at least a little bit of a silver lining on all of this. Canadians, stand strong. We are with you.
Flights to popular U.S. cities. This after many Canadian vacationers apparently are avoiding the U.S. entirely. Asher Red joins us from the Atlanta International Airport. And Asher, the airlines say they're just following the demand?
Yeah, exactly. And some Canadian airlines are starting to shift their focus to Mexico and the Caribbean. That's where the airlines say that Canadians are starting to vacation instead of right here in the United States. And they've noticed that in the past few months. Now, the U.S. Travel Association says that Nevada and Florida rank among the most popular destinations for Canadian travelers. But starting this month, Air Canada is dialing back service to those states as well as to Arizona. In the latest investors meeting, Air Canada said that it was adding more routes to Canadian leisure destinations instead. Other American airlines, or Canadian airlines rather, like Porter, have stopped advertising some American destinations entirely. A Porter spokesperson says in a statement, quote, "We are mindful of the overall sentiment of travelers, and it's because of this that we've decided to adjust our marketing and emphasize Canadian destinations for the time being," end quote. And according to the Travel Association, Canadians visit America more than travelers from any other country, with 20.4 million visits just last year. And the association says that Canadians spent $20.5 billion in the U.S. last year, supporting 104.
Why should you come here? This place fucking sucks. Why should you come here and also risk your safety and security? You could get fucking hassled by a high school graduate with an inferiority complex who's gonna fucking big dog you and possibly detain you permanently. fuck this country, okay? Don't come here. And by the way, this is the same energy that Israelis should be having towards people that want to implement boycott, divestment, and sanctions on the fucking apartheid state that is currently doing a genocide. And if Israelis don't have that sort of energy, then, you know, they're not with it. They're not with the shits. That's it.
40,000 American jobs. So even a small...
Hassan, are you safe from deportation? For the time being, yes. Because I'm an American citizen. I was born here. I know my haters will hate that, but that is the case.
Decline in revenue could have major impacts on Americans. Now, Flight Center, a travel agency with an office in Toronto, says that Canadians are in the middle of one of the busiest travel periods of the year.
This did pick up in February, where we saw actually a 40% decrease in leisure bookings to the U.S. And that just means...
What's the difference between these recent deportations and the ones during the Biden admin? I'll tell you. The Biden administration still was very rigid and also deported a shit ton of people. And it was completely unacceptable. This is an expansion on the previous administration, as the Republicans tend to move the country rightward. They've eliminated due process, and they're going after people with no criminal background whatsoever. They're just trying to grab as many people as possible, while they're also actively trying to remove legal permanent residence and take away their citizenship, take away their legal permanent residency status.
New bookings were down 40%. Over a 3-month period leading up to February, we did see a 20% increase in cancellations of pre-existing trips to the U.S. from Canada. And in fact, Canadians were rebooking for destinations like the Caribbean and Mexico.
And according to FlightAware, Canadian flights coming into New York's JFK airport saw a 19% decline in just last month. The rest of the United States dealt with a 5% decline in incoming Canadian traffic. Live at the Atlanta International Airport, Asher Red, Fox 13 News.
The president in the White House, who most Americans came to know through a reality TV show, it is somehow fitting that one of the issues that Donald Trump obsesses over, undocumented immigrants, has been packaged into reality-style TV.
Almost 4 a.m. and we are now rolling.
I think it's really important for Trump's governing style to have these things sort of televised. For him, if these things don't happen on TV, are they actually happening?
This morning, federal agents are intensifying the Trump administration's promise of mass deportations of undocumented immigrants.
The border represents a geographic site where the aspirations, the delusions, the anxieties, and the mythical expressions of the United States are enacted.
As war with terror organizations are happening all over the world, and they have operatives on our borders that are ramping up unlike ever before.
Much of what presidential administrations have done for years is enact a sort of border theater, which is rooted in violence. It is through those images, it is through the confrontations, manufactured in some instances, that the United States defines its sense of citizenship for the people.
Now, the president is dramatically expanding the powers of federal agencies to help with mass deportations.
He knows the power of this thing right here, the camera. When you take the camera, that's a big weapon nowadays, whether it's citizen journalism, whether it's a well-known company, or if...
I'm sorry, what? They interviewed Patrick Bet-David, Al Jazeera, The Listening Post, interviewed Mr. Valuetainment for this? What the fuck?
The power of this thing right here, the camera. When you take the camera, that's a big weapon nowadays, whether it's citizen journalism, whether it's a well-known company, or if it's the U.S. government trying to go out there showing the raids that this is what we're doing, this is what we're working on behind closed doors. I love the fact that they're doing it, to be honest with you. I love the fact that we're able to see it.
That kind of enthusiasm for seeing people hounded and humiliated on TV appears to be the point.
The police, you have a warrant. Come out with your hands up.
The televised raids are a show of force, choreographed to intimidate undocumented immigrants. And while those tactics form part of Donald Trump's long-promised mass deportation plan, they're not new. The Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, or ICE, has been turning its operations into TV content since the early 2000s and the so-called War on Terror. Journalists are often invited to tag along with officers enforcing the policy in what are known as ride-alongs.
I did that 20 years ago. After 9/11, during the Bush administration, reporters would join federal agents while they conducted raids. That was part of a concerted visual propaganda machine that the Bush administration mounted to shape public opinion. It shored up support for the quote-unquote war on terror that resulted in the deaths of millions of people, and it shored up support for massive border buildup, border wall construction, and the deployment of troops.
Fast forward a decade to Donald Trump's first term in office, and immigration enforcement had become a PR disaster for the White House. The images and sounds of crying children separated from their parents earned the administration reams of bad press. Trump officials learned a lesson that sometimes hardline policies require softer packaging. So this time round, the administration has used some popular media personalities, like daytime TV host Dr. Phil.
We're here to tell your story and have your back. So we're getting the word out that you're out there taking down the bad guys.
Dr. Phil is one of a slew of media figures and journalists.
Bloodless fucking ghouls, dude. Monsters. I wonder if the listening post will put a clip of Asmongold saying that he wanted to dress up as Ash Ketchum and go on a ride along. You know, because it's just entertainment. People's lives are fucking being ruined. People who are not criminals, by the way. Yeah. Fuck around and find out, I say, as I, laugh at the child cancer kid whose parents are about to be deported, who've been fucking living here for 20 goddamn years. And the child who has cancer is 10 years old and is an American citizen, but she has to go and be deported alongside their fucking family members. Yeah, I don't care. Shouldn't have been here. Yeah.
Who've been granted first-hand access to ICE's made-for-TV immigration raids.
These so-called journalists riding around with the police on a ride-along, it's like take your kid to work day.
For 2 days, News Nation was given the unique privilege of riding along with this trained team of officers.
One can only sort of have one perception after this. Black and brown people are running around, and these are the good guys, mostly white guys, going around and arresting them and putting them in prisons. And so it is not journalism.
It's important to remember when we're looking at reports in which journalists are on ride-alongs.
We're now heading to the northwest part of the city.
The viewers are seeing whether it's
Token Yemeni, genuinely asking why you didn't push AOC and Bernie on Gaza and how they vote. I love you, but I don't understand why not. I don't know, maybe because I have 5 minutes with AOC and 10 with Bernie before they went up on stage. Did you see how the interview took 9 minutes and 53 seconds to conduct? How am I supposed to get anything across in that situation?
it be the border, whether it be any.
I also did start the conversation about Gaza, specifically from the perspective of defending First Amendment rights.
Neighborhood through the eyes of federal agents. And therefore, journalists become the amplifiers of their perspective. So when journalists, quote unquote, embed, we are telling the story from a particular point of view.
In the United States, not having the right documents isn't actually a criminal offense. It's a civil one. But you'd never know that from the language used by politicians and journalists.
If you're here illegally, get ready to leave.
The goal should be to deport every illegal in this country that we can find.
If you're here illegally, we're going to hunt you down and we're going to deport your ass.
As successive administrations have hardened their approach to immigration, the packaging of that news for public consumption has become more and more sensationalistic.
You got criminal aliens that are on the street that have weapons, that have grenades, that have all type of things.
In Trump Term 2, the government provides news outlets with not just the drama of the raids, but a new TV-friendly protagonist, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, who joins in on the action, complete with branded body armor.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem came along for the raid.
How many of these do you expect you'll witness as secretary?
I hope a lot.
One of the most important things the Trump administration is doing is the fact that they're televising their raids. And the reason why this...
Why is Patrick Bet-David talking about this? Like, I'm so confused. They couldn't find another guy. Like, they had to find a guy who's like pro-Trump. This is like genuinely shocking to me.
This is very important is because that's what their voters wanted. They were concerned about the 10 to 15 million illegal immigrants that came across the border. And so their job is to say, hey, we're doing our job. It's televised. Here's the camera. This is what we got going on.
You want cameras at these events, don't you? And some would say you want this spectacle to be filmed.
It's not a spectacle. This is our nation's law enforcement judicial process.
It's such a great publicity stunt to scare the crap out of the people that are here illegally, specifically the ones that are criminals.
Televised events, raids, are so important to defining an enemy. Someone who cannot speak for themselves, someone for whom we have little to no information, imagery that is meant to communicate to people where their places, and in some instances that they have no rights, and ultimately nothing can be done to help you.
Social media is where ICE showcases the numerous quote-unquote criminals they've apprehended. In most cases, the agency makes no distinction between those suspected of a crime and those who've actually been found guilty of criminal activity. However, data released by ICE paints a different picture. It shows that the surge in arrests of undocumented immigrants largely targets people without criminal convictions or criminal charges. And yet, the show goes on. In February, the White House tweeted a video, scenes from the deportation of immigrants. It was ugly and gratuitous. But for Trump supporters, it serves as evidence that they're getting exactly what they voted for.
I don't mind imposing some fear in criminals that came here illegally and are hurting citizens. Our job is to make sure people who live here legally are safe. So if we can make an example of them and show clips like that, I'm not surprised that they're doing that. I actually like it. And if it makes some people uncomfortable, I like it even more. Americans voted on November 5th, 2024, and they wanted America to be safer, and that's exactly what this administration
Yeah, I
is.
feel so much safer with this image juxtaposed over Patrick Bet-David, resident expert on growing fascist movements in the United States of America. I feel so safe, dude. When I think about safety, I think like Nazi Germany, you know? I think Nazi Germany style Gestapo raids on unsuspecting people who've been living here for 10, 20, 30 fucking years, who haven't really done anything wrong. Amazing.
Thank you for watching.
All right, let's get to Turkey. For all of the turkey heads in the chat who've been saying, Hassan, why aren't you covering Turkey? I have been. And I understandably have been paying close attention to what's going on as well. And considering that Rütük, which is the government censor, has made it illegal to broadcast any of these protests as of yesterday, or as of like tonight, I guess. For many Turks who have a VPN, I am probably the only place where they can get this information from. Rütük is the Turkish censor, like the Turkish government censor. Turkey doesn't have free speech, for those of you who don't know. Obviously, like the American government also has like some kind of censors on what you can and can't broadcast as well. But the Turkish government is actively using pre-existing organs to basically make it impossible to show the rest of the country what is happening. Twitch açık, VPN gerekmiyor, bir de sol televizyon diye yine de haberdar ediyor az çok. Okay, this Turkish chatter is informing me that Twitch is actually open in Turkey, so you don't even need a VPN to watch me from Turkey right now. From what I understand, though, they also No, this is partisan chatter. This is not Nazi party. Partisan. It's just in reverse. The chatter is like trying to read what the fuck. Partisan. Chatter's trying to read this in reverse and going Nazi trap. Yeah, dude, they have English banners.
In Istanbul last night, demonstrators.
Yeah. Look at the logos. What do you think these guys are? What do you think this guy's political perspective is? When you look at those logos.
With police defying a government ban on protest. This, Turkey's biggest show of civil disobedience in well over a decade.
There are major protests in every big city in the country right now. And it all started when Recep Tayyip Erdogan recognized his influence and his prominence and his power was waning and decided to arrest the most popular leader in the opposition parties, the governor/mayor of Istanbul, İmamoğlu. Okay? And he did this by claiming that him and I think 25 or 27 other class members of his actually got their college degree through illicit means. It's all bullshit. They forced the university to revoke their certificates, their diplomas, and then they arrested 100+ people initially that they had declared supporters of İmamoğlu. It was all established. It's all a lie, for the record. In Turkey, you can't become president or run for president without a college degree. I think it's a silly thing in the Constitution to begin with, but and Recep Tayyip Erdogan's degree itself has been called into question on its legitimacy. It's like a little. It's basically like an open secret that he doesn't have a real diploma, but it is a prerequisite to become the president. And previously, I believe it was the premier initially. And since Turkey is now a constitutional, it went from a parliamentary system to a presidential one. Now it's the president that has always needed it, but now it's like the top office in the country because of a referendum that Recep Tayyip Erdogan pushed for after implementing martial law after the coup. Anyway, I don't want to get too far into the weeds. Having said that, this opposition is not united on ideology. There are communists, socialists, Kurdish revolutionary groups. There are even some nationalists in the opposition, like breakaway parties from the ultra-nationalist party. It's a very unique opposition that comprises close to 50%, if not a little bit over 50% of the country. Erdogan's coalition government, on the other hand, is comprised of the ultra-nationalists, the MHP, and Erdogan's own party. However, Erdogan's popularity has obviously dropped tremendously due to hyperinflation and many other issues. And in that process, Erdogan recognizes that his time in office is coming to a close, and fearful of his future prospects, he is turning around and illegally arresting a whole bunch of people. Erdogan also seized the assets of İmamoğlu and claimed that they were also doing criminal activity, and also arrested a bunch of people that were sympathetic to İmamoğlu, journalists and academics alike. Mass suppression is taking place in Turkey. Suppression has always been a tool that Erdogan has utilized in the country, for the record. It's not new. There's no free speech in the country. Erdogan himself actually went to jail once, ironically, for reading a poem. And he has loved the lack of free speech since he's risen to power and has been in power for the past 22 plus years. What? We gonna keep playing iTag, or are you gonna thank me for the follow? There you go. Let's continue. Bro said, are you gonna thank me for the follow? If I thanked every follower, I would have to just never stream. If I thanked every person that subscribes, I wouldn't even be able to stream. I would just be thanking subscribers. That's why I usually just stick to people who gift 5 subs or more. And even then, there are times when it's impossible for me to thank every single person. Did you lethal that kid for a dumb meme? Yes, I did. Bill Vog, thank you for the 5 gifted. Sex Saver, thank you for the 10 gifted. Maggie Fondor Connoisseur, thank you for the 5. Decoy, thank you for the 5 gifted. Mods, you can unban that person that I swatted away like a fly. I was just memeing.
Damn, this guy's good.